What you're about to witness is not history. It's a question so profound that it challenges everything we think we know about the deadliest conflict humanity has ever known. This is not a story of what happened. It's a story of what could have happened if one piece of technology, one impossible tool, had existed decades before its time. This is the story of how artificial intelligence could have rewritten World War II and saved millions of lives in the process. At 4:45 a.m. on a Friday morning, the first shots were fired. German forces crossed the Polish border, unleashing a military strategy the world had never seen before. Blitzkrieg, lightning war. Within hours, Polish cities were burning. Within days, the country was fractured. Within 5 weeks, Poland had fallen, and with it, any illusion that this would be a small conflict. Britain and France declared war on Germany, but they were unprepared. Their armies outdated. Their strategies built for the last war, not this one. As tanks rolled across Europe and planes darkened the skies, one thing became horrifyingly clear. No one knew how to stop what was coming. Over the next 6 years, more than 70 million people would die. Not just soldiers, civilians, children, entire families erased, cities turned to ash, cultures destroyed. The human cost was incomprehensible. Every decision made by exhausted generals in dimly lit war rooms could save thousands or condemn them. Every delay, every miscalculation, every wrong guess became a death sentence. The generals did their best, but their best wasn't enough. They worked with incomplete intelligence, delayed reports, guesswork, hope. They moved pieces on maps like a chess game where half the board was invisible, and every move took days to execute. Convoys were sunk because no one knew where the submarines were hiding. Cities were bombed because defenders didn't know they were targets until the planes were overhead. Battles raged for months because no one could predict what the enemy would do next. Human minds, brilliant, dedicated, desperate, were simply not fast enough, not comprehensive enough, not perfect enough. But imagine a mind that was. Artificial intelligence as we understand it today didn't exist in 1939. It wouldn't exist for decades. But let's imagine, just for a moment, that it did. Not as science fiction, not as fantasy, but as a real, functioning system. A mind unlike any human mind. A mind that could break codes in seconds, that would take humans months to crack, simulate millions of battle scenarios, and find the optimal strategy before a single shot is fired. Predict enemy movements with terrifying accuracy by analyzing patterns no human could see. Optimize logistics on a global scale, food, ammunition, medical supplies, ensuring everything arrives exactly where and when it's needed. Process every piece of intelligence simultaneously. No delay, no confusion, no human error. This wasn't a weapon. It was an architect, a strategic mind that could see the entire war as a single, solvable problem. The Allies activate the system on September 2nd, 1939, one day after Germany invades Poland. Within hours, the AI has processed every available piece of intelligence. German troop positions, supply routes, communication patterns, industrial capacity. It analyzes the Blitzkrieg strategy and identifies 127 critical weaknesses. It presents the Allied commanders with a plan. The generals stare at the screens in disbelief. The AI has calculated outcomes they couldn't have imagined. Counterattacks that would have seemed suicidal now appear brilliant. Supply line disruptions that would cripple the German advance. Evacuation routes for civilians that minimize casualties. One general, a veteran of the First World War, looks at the glowing interface and whispers, This changes everything. He's right. The German army expects chaos. They've seen it before. Panicked defenders, disorganized resistance, cities falling like dominoes. Instead, they encounter something impossible. Polish forces, guided by AI-calculated strategies, strike German supply lines with surgical precision. Bridges are destroyed exactly 4 hours before German tanks arrive. Ambushes are set in locations the Germans haven't even planned to reach yet. Civilians are evacuated from cities 36 hours before bombings, following routes calculated to avoid all German patrol patterns. Poland still suffers. War is still hell. But the major cities, Warsaw, Krakow, Lodz, are not burned to the ground. Casualties are reduced by 60%. And most importantly, the German advance is contained. By mid-October, Hitler's lightning war has become a grinding stalemate. His generals report something they can't explain. It's as if the enemy knows our plans before we do. They're not wrong. The Battle of the Atlantic would become the longest continuous military campaign of World War II, lasting from 1939 to 1945 in our timeline. German U-boats hunted Allied convoys in a deadly game of cat and mouse, sinking millions of tons of supplies and killing tens of thousands. In this timeline, it lasts 18 months. The AI breaks the Enigma code not in years, but in 3 days. Every German naval communication becomes transparent. Every U-boat patrol route is known before the submarines even leave port. Convoy routes are adjusted in real time. Ships that would have been sunk sail safely to Britain. Supplies reach their destinations. Families receive letters from sailors instead of death notices. By mid-1940, the German U-boat fleet is effectively neutralized. The Atlantic is no longer a graveyard. Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, was one of Germany's most brilliant tactical commanders. In our timeline, he fought Allied forces across North Africa for nearly 3 years, from 1940 to 1943. In this timeline, he lasts 7 months. The AI predicts his every maneuver. Supply convoys are intercepted before they reach his forces. Water sources are secured before his troops can access them. Every counterattack is anticipated and neutralized. Rommel sits in his tent, staring at maps that no longer make sense. Every time he plans an offensive, the enemy is already waiting. Every time he tries to retreat, escape routes are cut off. In October 1941, he surrenders to British forces. His final words are recorded by a British officer. "I was not defeated by soldiers. I was defeated by something else." Operation Barbarossa, Hitler's invasion of the Soviet Union, was the largest military operation in history. In our timeline, it became a years-long bloodbath that killed millions. In this timeline, it becomes a calculated trap. The AI has been preparing for this invasion for months. Soviet forces, equipped with AI-generated battle plans, allow the German army to advance deep into Soviet territory, then systematically cut off their supply lines. The siege of Leningrad never happens. The civilians are evacuated weeks before German forces arrive. Stalingrad doesn't become a months-long urban nightmare. Instead, it's a 2-week siege that ends with the encirclement and surrender of the German Sixth Army. By winter 1942, the German advance has collapsed. Not through attrition, but through perfect, calculated strategy. Hundreds of thousands of soldiers on both sides, who would have died in frozen trenches, survive. But the AI's greatest impact isn't on battlefields. It's in the shadows. Intelligence reports, processed at superhuman speed, reveal patterns that human analysts miss. Train schedules that don't make sense. Industrial facilities consuming massive resources but producing nothing. Populations disappearing from census records. The concentration camps. In our timeline, The full horror of the Holocaust wasn't discovered until Allied forces began liberating camps in 1944 to 1945. By then, millions had already died. In this timeline, the AI identifies the camp system in early 1941. Allied commanders are presented with precise coordinates, guard rotations, railway schedules, security weaknesses. Liberation operations begin in late 1941. Auschwitz is reached in March 1942, Treblinka in May, Bergen-Belsen in July. Not every prisoner is saved. The evil has already begun. But hundreds of thousands who died in our timeline survive in this one. Children who would have perished, live to see liberation. Dresden, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Hamburg, Tokyo. In our timeline, these cities were devastated by bombing campaigns that killed hundreds of thousands of civilians, many in single nights. In this timeline, these bombings never occur, not because of mercy, but because of efficiency. The AI calculates that strategic military targets can be neutralized without mass civilian casualties. Precision strikes replace carpet bombing. Industrial facilities are destroyed while residential areas are spared. The cities stand. The people live. By March 1943, the war is over. Germany, surrounded and outmaneuvered at every turn, has no choice but to surrender. Hitler's 1,000-year Reich lasts 4 years. Italy surrenders within weeks. Japan, seeing the complete collapse of its European allies and facing an enemy with perfect strategic foresight, surrenders in September 1943. No atomic bombs are dropped. Hiroshima and Nagasaki remain standing, their citizens going about their lives, unaware of the alternative timeline where their cities vanished in nuclear fire. The victory celebrations are different in this timeline. They happen earlier. The soldiers coming home are younger. More of them are coming home. In our timeline, World War II killed approximately 70 to 85 million people, military and civilian. The exact number will never be known. In this timeline, the death toll is approximately 20 million. Still a catastrophe. Still a tragedy that scars a generation. But 50 to 65 million people who died in our timeline survive in this one. 50 million parents who return to their children. 50 million children who grow up. 50 million futures that aren't erased. Every single one of them exists because a machine could calculate faster than a human could think. Of course, this never happened. AI didn't exist in 1939. The Enigma code took years to break, not days. The Holocaust claimed 6 million Jewish lives and millions of others. The Battle of Stalingrad killed over 2 million people. The atomic bombs fell on Hiroshima and Nagasaki, killing over 200,000 in an instant. History unfolded exactly as we know it. The letters were sent. The families grieved. The cities burned. The survivors carried their trauma for the rest of their lives. Those 50 million people died, and we can never bring them back. But here's what's different. We have that technology now. The AI that could have changed 1939 exists in 2025. Not as speculation, not as theory, as reality. We can break codes instantly, simulate millions of scenarios, predict patterns, optimize logistics, process intelligence at inhuman speeds. The question isn't whether it's possible. The question is, what are we doing with it? Right now, as you watch this, wars are being fought. People are dying. Families are being destroyed. Decisions are being made with incomplete information, human limitations, and imperfect calculations. The technology that could have ended World War II in months exists today. But conflicts still drag on for years. Lives are still lost unnecessarily. Humanitarian crises still spiral out of control. Why? Perhaps it's because we're afraid of giving a machine that much power. Perhaps it's because we don't trust calculations over human judgment. Perhaps it's because the politics of war are more complicated than the strategy. Or perhaps it's because we simply haven't faced the question honestly. If we have the power to save lives, millions of lives, and we choose not to use it, what does that make us? In an alternate timeline, a mother receives a letter from her son. He's coming home from the war. It's 1943. He survived. In our timeline, she received a different letter. One that began with, "We regret to inform you." The difference between those two letters, between those two timelines, is a technology that didn't exist then, but exists now. World War II killed 70 million people over 6 years. With AI, it could have killed 20 million over 2 years. That's 50 million lives, 50 million futures, 50 million families that remained whole instead of being shattered. The technology that could have saved them is in our hands today. So the question isn't about the past, it's about right now. What are we waiting for?